Let's talk now to Dr. Tony Agbons, researcher, senior lecturer, Anglia Ruskin University in the British capital, London. Good morning to you, Dr. Agbons. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, laddie, and compliment of the season.
Same to you, same to you. But it doesn't look like it's going to be a particularly easy season coming with all these issues on the front burner. Of course, on one side, you have good news in terms of the weather. We understand that it's going to become warmer over the next couple of days, reaching highs of 14 degrees. But that will be scant comfort for those who need ambulance services, who need to travel, the border force, nurses, and all of that. How is this panning out in the UK? I know the last time I spoke to you, it wasn't quite as imminent, and we were hoping that maybe some kind of compromise could be reached. But it doesn't seem as if that is happening, and the strikes are due tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you, laddie, for the way you have described the scenario here in the UK at the moment. It is very bleak as the winter. It is. It's not funny at all. There is a feeling of kind of deja vu as far as life in the UK is. I tell you, the different strike action by different professional bodies and workers in the last couple of weeks is been mind-boggling. Like you have rightly enumerated, you mentioned the nurses and rail workers, postal workers, the border force, ambulance driver, driving instructors. In fact, just name it. They've all been, angling to go on strike. And government officials here have, been really helpless. They have not really done anything substantial. And I like the way you use the word resolute. In fact, I will even upgrade that adjective higher and say they are defiant, because they are not really discussing with these workers in a manner that most of us would have liked. And if I tell you the level of disruption here is really, really alarming. And the Christmas is not really looking like the Christmas that we all expected.
Now, of course, part of the reason why we can describe what the government is doing as resolute and defiant, as you described it, is the fact that, let's put it bluntly, the government has no money. So, I mean, promising anybody any large increases in wages and so on, there is nowhere this money is going to come from. First, there was the lots and lots of debt that the government went into when COVID-19 came up. There is the one that happened in the aftermath of Brexit. And then, of course, there was the position that happened under Liz Truss when the government's finances took on a really big hit in the aftermath of the mini budget that has now been reversed. And then, of course, there's the continuing idea of energy prices as a result of the war in Ukraine. Do you think people may now be blaming former Prime Minister Boris Johnson for taking such a central role in the war in Ukraine, particularly because it appears as if, unlike some of the other European countries, Britain is particularly hit by this issue of energy crisis, which has fed into the cost of living crisis?
You've made some valid point there, and which a lot of analysts agree that in terms of expenditure, government expenditure have increased. On one hand, with the crisis going on in between Russia and Ukraine, the UK has put a lot of financial outlay in that project, so to speak. So that is on one hand. But the point people like us don't agree, when you look at resolution of conflict, whether it's trade union or military, there have to be discussions. I think this is my personal opinion, and a lot of people may challenge me for this. I think that the officials of the UK government, from the PM as the Prime Minister, they've not really been courteous enough, discussing with these workers. Yes, the workers are not expecting, from information we gathered, they are not expecting that. For instance, take the nurses who are asking for about 19% pay rise. The truth is, when you go for a negotiation, you bring something to the table, and the other side will bring something to the table, and then you find a middle ground, and everybody agree. So, but for UK ministers to always say there is no money, they are not discussing. For instance, when the Royal College of Nurses, the umbrella body for majority of nurses in the UK, were threatening to go on strike, and the deadline was itching closer, the Secretary of State, Steve Barclay, called for a meeting, and then shockingly, he walked out of the meeting after about less than half an hour. That, for most of us, was really disgusting. It's not a ministerial behavior. And it goes to show how politicians, treat, the treat ordinary citizens. It was not the best. Then when you look at it economically, yes, it's a hard time. The government may not be able to, pay all these workers what they require, but there have to be discussions. And let me be very frank with you, Ladi. The truth of the matter is that many of these workers, frontline workers, they earn below the living wage. A lot of them work conditions, they are not really, really good. So I think it's all about pay parity, making adjustments, where necessary. There's been a lot of pay freezes in the UK in the past. So pay rises have not moved along with, the consumer price index. So this is all what have dovetailed into the situation we have today. So that you see that, for instance, if you look at the border force, their union, Unison, GMB, and Unite, an independent pay review committee have recommended that they be paid 4.5%. But this border force, very critical security architecture here in the UK, have said they are not taking 4.5% because inflation is above 10%. Because over the years, their pay have not been increased. So this is the situation where we are.
As we approach Christmas, I mean, we are in the Christmas week, Dr. Agbonza, and you did say that it's looking quite bleak. I mean, apart from all the effects of all these strikes, which are linked to the cost of living, I know that the last time we spoke, the one that may actually come to affect citizens the more is that, on the other hand, we're also being warned of food shortages, a possibility of food shortages as a result of the impact of this energy crisis, production snafus, and then the whole idea of cost of moving goods now as a result, not of the war in Ukraine alone, but the prior problem of Brexit. So some things are meeting themselves on the ground, as some Nigerians would say, that one problem is meeting the other one on the ground and sitting on top of it. How do you see the citizens meandering through this, and what really, realistically, can the government do to ameliorate this situation?
Yeah, I think, I really like your description there. Things are meeting things on the ground. But it's so unfortunate that, like we have discussed on this program, after Brexit came the COVID-19 pandemic. And just as we're recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, then came the Russia-Ukraine crisis. So it's really unfortunate. But I think where the UK have had problems in terms of fiscal and economic problems is some decisions that government have not taken properly. They have not really looked at the far-reaching effects. So if you look at the Brexit, the challenge that came from Brexit, when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, there were still a lot of discussions with the European Union, and a lot of agreements were signed as to how there could be a seamless, transaction between the UK and the European Union. So the number of agreements were signed so that distribution channels for goods and services will not be affected. So, but there have also been some level of high-handedness from both sides, talking about the UK and the European Union. It was a case of, who will blink first. So that was there. And then the major problem is this crisis. For me, I think what the UK and other countries in the West should be going for now is an early resolution of this Russia-Ukraine crisis. Because the longer this crisis goes on, the more damage it's going to do to the UK economy and most economies in the Western world, and even as far as even in Africa. You saw this week the US president had to call a meeting of over 50 African leaders, and they were, talking about partnership and collaboration as far as the global economy is concerned. Let's not also forget this same week, which was a very good call, the Indian Prime Minister and Narendra Modi, you know, he called on the Russian president Vladimir Putin that he should use dialogue and diplomacy in resolving this crisis. So I think the crisis between Russia and Ukraine is the major challenge facing global economy at the moment.
My final question to you will have to do with that support that citizens like yourself were promised in the aftermath of the start of this war, first by Boris Johnson, of course, by Liz Truss, and then, of course, that promise was reaffirmed by Rishi Sunak once he took over as Prime Minister, which is the support for the energy bills. How is that coming along? Is that support coming? Are you receiving it? And if so, how much of a difference is it making to helping cope with the significant rises in prices in terms of energy bills?
Yeah, thank you. This support is coming, but to be honest with you, it's just it's a figment, and it's just a pinch of the salt. It's not really something substantial. Um, and to be honest, I think the government of the United Kingdom also, they now need to sit with the energy company, because during this crisis they've increased energy prices instead of taxing them. So the support is coming, but it's not substantial. That is my very answer to that question. It is not enough.
Indeed, Dr. Agbons, as your initial description of the coming Christmas, most people would not want to say it's correct, but I mean, facing reality, it does look that way. But one hopes that between now and then, at least, action will take place on the strikes, while, as you pointed out, some attempts will also be made to resolve the Ukraine-Russia war one way or the other. So that 2023 will look less bleak. But for now, thank you so much for your time on the program. I wish you a pleasant Christmas in spite of all the odds, and hope that when we speak next, it will be of happier things. Thank you so much, Dr. Agbons.
Thank you, Lade. Have a great day.
Thank you.